This is Charles Romans again, and welcome back to my little corner of the tube. Today, I'd like to talk about who are your people. Now, before I start talking about this, I want to tell you a story. I have a friend, Joe Mock. He's from Greenup, like I am. We met when our kids were in school at Grays Branch Elementary in Greenup, Kentucky. Okay, so and we were both on the site-based decision-making council. So, as part of this, we had to go to a convention in Louisville. Now, Louisville, Kentucky is about 3.5 hours away from Greenup, depending upon how you drive. So, quite a bit of distance away from Greenup, and you would think that when you got to Louisville that you would not know anyone there. Well, we're at this convention, and we were going to a panel. So, we're all sitting at the table, and we had a couple of extra seats. Well, this lady comes up and she asked if we would mind if she sat with us. And of course, we said, no, go ahead, sit down. Now, none of us knew this woman at the time. So she sat down, and Joe, like he always does, when he meets somebody the first time, he leans over and says, so, who's your people? Well, they start talking. And after about 5 or 10 minutes, Joe found a connection with this woman, and he actually knew 3 or 4 of the people that she was related to. And this is from a woman from 3.5 hours away. So that is a good example of how you can find connectivity. And connectivity is a very important thing. When we start out, the people that we're connected to are our family members, and our close neighbors, and other people in the community. And this is really the way society's built. You need to start out, of course, you get to know your family. Now, in my case, if my father is to be believed, when I asked my father about our family, he said our family were basically horse thieves and moonshiners. So I asked him, I said, which side? He just said yes. Now, hopefully, your family isn't quite as extroverted as my family supposedly was. But family's important, community's important, and your neighbors, of course, are very important, because these are the people that from a very young age and into adulthood, all through our lives, that affect us in ways that is really hard to completely determine. There was an English poet back in the 1600s named John Donne. He had a wonderful quote that said, no man is an island sufficient unto himself. I may have garbled that a little bit, but that's the gist of it. Well, that quote has always stuck with me. And in my first book, Shrink Your Own Head, I touched on that subject. I compared people not to an island, but more to a peninsula. Now, the reason I did that is because we're the peninsula. We're jetting out into the world, the future, as it were. The ocean that surrounds most of a peninsula represents the world at large. But the end of the peninsula that's connected to the mainland represents our connectivity with the people that we grew up with, the people we've met at school and in business and what have you. And without the connection to the mainland, of course, the peninsula by default would become an island, essentially adrift on the sea. So, a lot of people have discussed this over the years. Society itself is not built around the lone wolf philosophy. Now, I should take a second here to say, you don't have to like everyone you know. You don't, or are related to, for that matter. You don't have to agree with the things that they say and they do, but their connection to you is very important. It is what helps us become the individual that we are. Now, in some cases, unfortunately, families and certain communities are toxic. Now, when you're in a toxic relationship of any sort, then you, of course, need to get out of that toxic relationship, because that's not beneficial for anyone. But as you go through life and meet different people, they come into your circle of influence and they influence you. Uh, Sociologists and psychiatrists for years have studied this, and especially with the younger individuals, the younger humans, the magical creatures, tweens and teenagers, who somehow they developed a sense of isolation. This is easy to do because they are experiencing new things that they've not experienced before. And of course, they think no one gets them. And honestly, some people might not. But it's incumbent, it's very important for us to make these younger people understand that they are still connected. I know that when I was raising my daughter, I wanted her to know that I was always on her side. I was always willing to do whatever I could for her. But I also stressed that I did not expect her to become a carbon copy of me. Because, honestly, depending upon who you ask, the world doesn't need any more Charlies. But we need to keep that connection so that as the younger person is growing and older people are evolving, because honestly, you never really stop. Every day really is a new day. But we need to keep that connection, and we need to constantly re-examine that connection. We need to find how do people affect us? What people in our lives are influencing our decisions? And, it's up to us to decide if that's good or bad. So, basically, don't try to be a lone wolf. It works really well in the movies. Like, for instance, Clint Eastwood had a wonderful career being the lone wolf. But in real life, that doesn't really work out too well. We're social animals by nature. We're genetically hardwired to want to have a connection with other people. Even if you're introverted and you don't really interact with people very much and prefer not to, that does not mean you don't have the connectivity. So if we can maintain that, then it's possible for us to be alone and not necessarily have feelings of loneliness or abandonment. Now, this is especially important with younger people because they have done studies on this, that young people growing up crave this connectivity. If they can't find it at home with their family, their neighbors, they will find it somewhere, and they will develop a default family of people, and it may even be random strangers on the street, people who they think are of like mind. Now, over time, these people become their family, and honestly, most people would do anything in the world for family. So we need to make sure that we choose the right people to be connected with. So if Joe Mock would ever come around and ask you who are your people, then you'd be able to answer him and say that you have some really good people in your lives. And whether that's family, friends, or just your neighbors. Well, in closing, I want to say that I've met a lot of people in my life. Some were good, some were bad, some were indifferent. But I've always been able to find some sort of common ground to talk to people. And if we can develop that skill, then I think we'll be healthier and happier individuals and lead more productive and fulfilling lives. So, thank you very much, and everyone have a great day.